So this week's portion, Tissa, I would say is pretty infamous in terms of what it contains. It contains the golden calf incident. But I want to talk for a moment, not just about that, but about what's happening with Moses at this point. He's at the top of the mountain. And, oh, here, wait, 1 second. There we go. So he's at the top of the mountain, and he is having a close dialogue with God and receiving the instruction, right? And meanwhile, the people at the base of the mountain, they don't know what's going on. It's been 40 days. They get a little uncertain about what's going on and panic. And you see what happens from that with the golden calf incident. But for Moses, he's having this conversation with God. It's a very holy moment, very spiritual moment for him. 40 days of being at the top of this mountain and receiving these instructions, right? God knows what's happening, and God points out to him what's happening with the people below, and is so angry that God wants to smite them all and start over again, right? Moses convinces God otherwise, and so he convinces God to have mercy and compassion at this moment for the people, even though this is certainly the biggest mistake. I think that you could argue this is the biggest mistake that our people has made, right? Is the golden calf incident. Right after all the holiness of all these miracles that they personally witness, and they still make a mistake like that with the golden calf incident. It's one of the biggest things about Judaism is one God, right? And here right after all of that, they build the golden calf and they worship it and say that this is the God that brought them out of Egypt, right? You could understand from God's perspective how absurd that would be and offensive that would be, really. But Moses convinces God otherwise, and you see Moses goes down the mountain and he sees what's happening. He smashes the tablets, right? I think this points out to us a couple of different things. First of all, you can intellectually know something, but that's not the same as emotionally knowing it, right? Or seeing it in person, seeing it yourself, witnessing it, bearing witness to that. You can have a reaction, even if you intellectually know what's happening. To feel what's happening, see what's happening with your own eyes can be a very different experience than that, right? So intellectually, Moses knew what was happening. God had told him, right? And he convinced God to have compassion, have mercy. He goes down and he smashes the tablets, right? In anger, in frustration, disappointment. There's a lot of commentary about what's going through Moses's head at this point, right? But regardless, at this point, it breaks the spell. He smashes down the tablets, and everything that's going on with the worshiping of the golden calf and the ecstatic worship that's happening, it breaks the spell. The people immediately realize what's happened and realize their mistake as their leader comes back, smashes these tablets. It's a very big moment, right? But you can see 40 days of receiving that instruction and then smashing it all down. And it was written by God, right? So you see the second time around, Moses partners with God to write the instruction. And it's interesting because the Torah tells us that, we're told that in the Mishkan, when it's built, that the tabernacle housed both sets of the tablets, right? Both the smashed ones and the new ones that Moses helped to write. So preserving that moment forever, right? Because those smashed tablets were very sacred, but they also broke that spell. It was a very crucial moment for the people to break that spell and to realize what was happening. But for Moses too, to really understand what was going on, he knew it, but he didn't really know it emotionally on that level until he witnessed it personally, right? So there are things that are going on in our lives that we can intellectually know, but sometimes it takes something like bearing personal witness to something before we can really understand. So many things going on in the world we see with our news, right? And you're not there in person, you can't always understand. You can't always get that emotional understanding of what's going on. So sometimes we need to take that perspective and we need to find a way to move beyond that intellectual knowledge and into that emotional space where we can really understand what's going on. But when it does, you could argue the positive and the negative, what happens when he smashes the tablets, right? The positive being it breaks the spell and it helps the people kind of come to terms with what they've done. And the negative being, it took all that work and God was the one who had written it, right? But it gets smashed. So there's lots going on with this portion, but hopefully we can find a way to move beyond just the intellectual understanding into the emotional space.
Yasha Koch, Cantor. Just as an aside, as you probably know, during Tachanun, the Cantor sings Psalm 130. And I said to her one day at breakfast, I said, I really like that melody. Who wrote it? And she said, I did. So just thought it would be interesting for you to know that she wrote that very pretty melody. Maybe someday you'll teach it, so we'll all do it together. Just a couple of announcements. Tonight's services are what, at 6 o'clock, Cantor? And tomorrow morning, Shabbat, 9 o'clock. Did you have anything else?
Actually, I didn't have something, but.
Go ahead.
I want to mention, if you haven't seen the information yet, there is one last Havdalah program of the season until the time changes and it gets too late. So if you plan to join us for that, it's March 9th. It'll be at Shekinah Wellness Center in Maple Heights, 7:45 p.m. Please register if you plan to attend. It is a Havdalah open mic night. So we're inviting all creatives to take a moment to share in front of the community. So whether that's art, whether it's music or poetry or stories that you either have written or are personally very attached to, please come and share that for our open mic night, March 9th.